It's no secret that I am a big Amphibia fan. I started my channel making Amphibia videos, I still continue to make them, and I try to include it in as many videos as possible. However, as much as I love it and believe it's the best show ever, I have to acknowledge how this show, along with the Owl House, which I also really like, will likely not be the way they are without Gravity Falls. As unique as these two sister shows have become, Gravity Falls was essentially the first Disney show to start off the era of the mysterious, story-driven yet still comedic cartoon, which of course led to the numerous story-driven cartoons that aired on Disney Channel and Disney XD for the past 10 years now. I have followed the show ever since it first aired in 2012, and I immediately found it amazing, albeit mildly disturbing. I can give praise to the show all day, but many other better creators already did that, so instead I'm going to criticize it. As much as I do love Gravity Falls, it's obviously not perfect. No show is, not even Amphibia, which I think is better, more on that later. The show has its flaws, and the one major flaw that has bothered me for the past 6 years was how it ended. Specifically, I did not like how Grunkle Stan's sacrifice was done. To be clear, Grunkle Stan is my favorite character from Gravity Falls. I always enjoyed his crude yet funny personality. He may be a crooked, selfish businessman, but he still has the heart to show love to his family. Love that is strong enough for him to willingly sacrifice his own mind to defeat one of the most chaotic villains ever in a story. The scene where Stanley gets engulfed in the flames of the memory wipe is one of the most heartbreaking scenes I have seen in a cartoon, and it's one of the strongest scenes to convey that cartoons can be enjoyed by everyone. At least that's what I would say if his memory wipe was never reversed by simply showing him a scrapbook. I rewatched the final episode of Gravity Falls and this scene numerous times, and I always found it way too convenient for the story. In the show's defense, the creators did provide information to explain this plot convenience. According to Journal Number 3, the memory wipe that Stan experienced can be undone by showing past images of their life, specifically when they're shown to him immediately after the erasure. So while that does provide the technical explanation for why Stan was able to recover so quickly, it does not change the fact that Stan's sacrifice was not really a sacrifice. He was able to do the heroic act of defeating Bill Cipher with basically no consequences. Also, if Stan's memories can be recovered this easily, by that logic, Bill could have easily survived the mind erasure as well. I mean, there was this moment as well that cannot be ignored. Honestly, the fact that Bill could potentially be alive is a theory worth discussing, but that's for another time. Overall, I just think Stan's sacrifice was done in a way that prevented it from being such an emotional moment for me because it had no long-term consequences. This kind of ruins the end of Stan's character arc in my opinion, which is a shame because, like I said, he is my favorite character of the show. However, as much as I did find this moment from the show very problematic, I sort of dismissed it for years, mainly because there's no other cartoon I watched that had a major sacrifice scene more impactful than Stan's sacrifice. At least that was the case before I watched Amphibia. So yeah, like Gravity Falls, Amphibia had a sacrifice scene, in fact it showed multiple, but the one that's most emotional was of course from the series finale where Anne sacrifices herself to save Amphibia. So what makes Anne's sacrifice better executed from a storytelling perspective compared to Grunkle Stan's? For one, Anne actually dies after making the act. Her physical body gets destroyed and so does her consciousness. Everything we know of Anne at that moment is just gone, which immediately made her death emotionally dreadful for the characters and the audience. Of course, some will point out that Anne's sacrifice was technically undone as well thanks to Domino 3 saving a copy of her in which she does come back to the world of the living. But that's the thing. It's technically a copy, a clone if you will, that went back alive after the sacrifice. This is not the same Anne that we saw throughout most of the show. She has the memories and consciousness of the original, but not the original body. The original Anne that we saw, like throughout the entire show, is dead, and her resurrection did not change that. I can go on explaining the technicalities of Anne's death and resurrection, which I did by the way. But the main takeaway here is that Anne's sacrifice had long-term consequences that will affect her, which gives the emotional impact that a character death should have to the audience. In contrast, like I mentioned earlier, Stan's sacrifice had no long-term consequences for him or the other characters, which cheapens what is supposed to be a very sad, memorable scene. This difference, along with a few other reasons I did not cover in this video, is why I think Amphibia is at least slightly better than Gravity Falls. I will agree that Gravity Falls largely did a better job with pacing, and the individual episodes of both shows are probably equal to each other in terms of enjoyment, But when it comes to their finales, as incredible Weirdmageddon was, I just think Amphibia's 3-part finale had better execution in wrapping up the story as a whole, specifically with how it makes you feel after watching it. While it is sad to see Gravity Falls end for sure, there is a bit of comfort knowing that Dipper and Mabel could see the town and everyone else in it at some point in the future. To be fair, this does make sense in the context of the show, but with Amphibia, the characters had to say goodbye with very little hopes that they will see each other again. While both endings have emotional impact, Amphibia's ending reflected the feelings of the audience more closely, which is why I ultimately thought it is the better finale. But of course, this is just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me if you want, but if you happen to agree, consider giving this video the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you have thoughts about Amphibia and Gravity Falls that you want to share, leave them in the comment section below. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great day. See you in the next one.